But let's focus on these massive matchups we have in week 5 of the college football season. And let's start with the top 10 matchup. Primetime, whiteout, Happy Valley, a rematch of last year's Big Ten championship game. Number 8 Oregon Ducks travel to Happy Valley to take on the number 3 Penn State Nittany Lions. Numbers at 3.5 total, down to about 51.5 now. Oregon has given up just 37 points in 4 games. However, that's against Montana State, Oklahoma State, Northwestern, Oregon State, Penn State. They've only given up 17 points. But again, look at the 3 opponents: Nevada, FIU, Villanova. I look at this one, John, and I eye that total that's been inching down throughout the week. I know everybody is going to look at it and immediately go, oh, they lit up the scoreboard last year in Indy against each other. I think this game's more about the defenses. I know we just talked about both quarterbacks in relation to the Heisman race. I think it's which quarterback avoids the mistakes that both defenses are going to put them in position to make Saturday night.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is a lower scoring game. I think it's a high leverage game for the majority of it. I don't know how much either coach is going to necessarily ask of their quarterback in this one. And I just think for Penn State, for James Franklin, I mean, this game just means everything, right? Like, you get accused year after year of not, and it's not really an accuse. It's like you don't win top 10 matchups, right? Yeah, and so I think, the idea that he's going to come out and just try to, outscore Oregon. Obviously you would have more points, but it's a philosophy. I don't really think that's what this is going to be. So yes, I think this is if Penn State has its way, I think they're going to really try to go on long drives, lean on the running game, burn that clock and make sure this is not a sort of back and forth affair. So if you think Penn State and this is obviously there, I would definitely lean under.
I am with you on the under. The only way I would bet the game other than the over-under is the only way I would bet it is Oregon money line. I think that's the only spot where there's value. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but that's the only way I would bet it. The 3.5 is too much, I think, for me to take Penn State, even though you're not paying all the juice. I don't like the minus 115 on the 3.5 for Oregon either. I think the only way I would bet it from a value standpoint is taking Oregon money line, but I'm with John. I like the under in this one. This thing's got 24-14, something like that, 21-17 written all over it. I just don't have a feel on the game because, look, I think Penn State's a better team, but holy crap, I love Dan Lanning. That team comes to play. When it's a big game, they just do it right. So I'm very torn from that standpoint. And I don't trust James Franklin.
Yeah, and that's fair. And James Franklin, who I used to joke around, we called him Jimmy Covers, because he would always find the extra points late in games to make sure he got that cover, especially against dogs, is 0-3 against the spread this year. And, there's been a lot of talk in State College. Well, he's not going as hard after those covers because he's resting guys. He knows it's a 16-game season. I just have questions about this Penn State offense. And I think, like John said, the best way to find some consistency in your offense is to lean on the O-line and the run game. I think it keeps it way under the total. And I think this is an opportunity for Oregon. Not that Oregon at all in the last 15 years has flown under the radar, even through the first 4 weeks this year. But I think it's an opportunity for them to jump firmly into the middle of the national championship conversation, even though for many people they've already been there, without even necessarily a win. I think this is a tight ball game down to the final possession. It's why I hate the hook on this thing. And if I had to bet a side, I would bet Oregon plus the 3.5 and then just be happy if my alma mater ekes out the victory. But my most likely bet on this one is definitely going to be the under, as long as it doesn't drop much more from what we're looking at right now at a 51.5. A couple of SEC games on the slate as well that have a lot to do with, like we talked about, a wide open top of the SEC. Let's start in Oxford. Number 4 LSU on the road at number 13 Ole Miss. Ole Miss took it to Tulane last week. I did not expect that. That's a good Green Wave team, and Ole Miss took it to them. Trinidad Chambliss has fit in just fine at quarterback for them, taking over 670 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks in his 2 starts, plus 195 yards on the ground this season as well, 5.5 a clip. LSU defense, though, is just suffocating, John. 9th in the country in points per game allowed, 10th in rushing yards allowed. It's kind of an irresistible force, immovable object game because Ole Miss has a top 10 offense in yards per game. But I also think it's an opportunity for a really good LSU defense that came into the year somewhat unheralded because of the amount of new personnel involved to take advantage of this quarterback. And if you're giving me LSU money line or even LSU, 1.5 probably isn't worth it right now, but LSU money line at even money, it's tough on the road in the SEC, but that's the angle I like in this one, is that defense forcing Chambliss into mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely that makes sense to me. You have a lot more proven commodities with LSU and Nussmeier in that offense than necessarily you do with the backup there at Ole Miss. Listen, a couple of things. One is Lane told me to take the over.
Yes, he did.
And I was taught to listen to my coaches. And I would say this, like, I know what you're saying about LSU's defense is not wrong. It is elite. It is certainly the best that Ole Miss is going to have seen by this point. But there is just something about these Ole Miss games where they just turn into shootouts. Like it's just like they're just amazing scoring partners. Like Kentucky looked like an amazing offense against Ole Miss 3 weeks ago. And the total was like 51.5, 50.5. They go over at the end with the field goal. I actually do like the over in this game. I mean, LSU has a guy in Garrett Nussmeier who is certainly capable of getting into a shootout and you feel comfortable with. I feel like Chambliss, any quarterback that plays for Lane Kiffin, honestly, is going to be capable of moving the ball and scoring points. So I actually do like the over in this game, even though I agree with you that LSU's defense is elite. I think there's just something about the water in Oxford where you're just going to get to a shootout when you play those guys.
I could see that. I don't know if I must be the only one. I don't get the LSU hype. And this is maybe where preseason rankings come into play too. Clemson's awful. Awful. Florida's awful. Like, who has LSU beat? Like, what have they done? They haven't done anything. I mean, not even who they beat, who they played well. What good team have they played where they played well? They haven't. They haven't played a good team yet. So that's the one thing I had, the hesitation. That's why I kind of like Ole Miss here. My only problem with Ole Miss is I could absolutely see Ole Miss being a soft team, laying a stinker against a really quality opponent. LSU is like they always have good players. They always have good quality players. But they barely beat Clemson. Clemson stinks. They barely beat Florida. Florida stinks. I'm not sold on LSU. LSU I think is, again, they got a lot of talent, but they haven't put it together yet.
Yeah, and I do have my questions. I mean, if we want to talk about who's beaten who at this point, Choppy, like I have my questions about Ole Miss too. I know I thought Tulane. Maybe I think Tulane's a whole lot better than they really are, and they're not good. I mean, they fought it out against Arkansas at home. They barely got away against Kentucky, who's just an awful team this year. Great, you hung 63 on Georgia State. I think maybe that's the storyline in this one is it's just a prove me matchup for both of these teams. Prove to me that you belong in the conversations that we're putting you in at the top of the SEC, John.
I have absolutely no issue with that. I really don't. I mean, I think sometimes we get into these situations and it's like, all right, I know like the market has set the price here, but it's like, I'll pay to see it, right? Like I will pay to see Ole Miss beat this LSU team, which to your point, I mean, they're the team that's now, again, I guess my counter would be Clemson stinks. Florida stinks. So their resume is kind of shrinking up too. And it's not like they looked that impressive in either of those games, albeit, Clemson was on the road first game of the season. I don't, that probably still meant something. But you could poke holes in all these teams' resumes, but I have no issue with that. If you want to say, hey, I don't think this Ole Miss team is anywhere near what it looks like on paper. It's a backup quarterback. I'm gonna pay plus money to see it. I think that makes total sense. I wouldn't lose sleep over that one.
Another big matchup in the SEC, and it seems like one team may have found their sea legs finally after a rough start to the year, but now they're going someplace they haven't won in a decade. It's Bama and Georgia. Saturday night, this one will be going up against the whiteout on TV, so get the multi-screen ready. Ty Simpson against Gunnar Stockton, number 17 Tide, dogs in Athens. That's no surprise. The 3 to 3.5 is the really important part of this. It was 3.5 earlier in the week, back to 3. If you can find the hook, I think that's the way to go. If you're looking for Bama, obviously. If you're on Georgia, grab it at 3, because I just if you're asking me to make this a simple matchup of quarterback versus quarterback, I think Stockton has proved a lot to us over the last week or two, John, and I lean Georgia against an Alabama team. That's great. Like I said, you seem to have found your footing just a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but I can't get the visions of Tallahassee out of my head.
Well, I would say a couple of things. One is Florida State better than we thought. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think if you'd have said if the number 8 had been next to their name in the first game of the season, like we would probably be talking about that team and that game and that loss in a different way. With that being said, I mean, I don't think Alabama's done anything to change the opinion. Like, they beat up on a horrible Wisconsin team that everybody's killing, beat up on Louisiana, whoever, some directional Louisiana school. I mean, Georgia won at Tennessee. Georgia was down 21-7 at Tennessee, one of the best offenses in the country. Alabama might be better than they looked against Florida State, but like that ain't going to be enough, bro. Just being better than you looked against Florida State ain't going to be enough on the road at Georgia. So I would beat Georgia all day here.
I am Georgia the whole way. That team plays different at home. That's a great environment. Kirby plays to the crowd. He knows what he's doing. I still wonder the fit with DeBoer at Alabama. I question the talent. You know, I know they say it's great talent. I mean, I'm with John. Like, who'd they beat since Wisconsin? Everybody beats Wisconsin. Louisiana Monroe. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. I can't get Tallahassee out of my head, and I just trust Georgia. I would like Alabama to win this game. It would help. I think it would help Tennessee out because maybe we beat Alabama. It gives boost to the Bama win. I have no idea. Maybe you want to lose to the eventual undefeated Bulldogs. Who knows? By 3, but I think Georgia all the way at 3.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something to see too. If Bama loses this one, as most of us expect, and then they go home to try and lick their wounds against a suddenly surprising to a lot of people Vanderbilt team and a Vandy team with Livin' La Vida Pavia Loca comes in there and upsets Bama, Kalen DeBoer isn't going to make it to Halloween in Tuscaloosa. He's just not. So even as good as Vanderbilt is, the knives will be out. One more quick one I want to touch on very quickly because all of a sudden it's become interesting in the Big Ten, the second tier of the Big Ten. 21 USC at 23 Illinois, who got thumped by Indiana last week. This one's going to be played at 9 a.m. Pacific time, so the Trojans' body clocks might be ready for this. They might not. USC, since joining the Big Ten, 0-4 against the spread in the Central and Eastern time zones. They are laying only 1.5. Laying 6.5. I don't know where I got 1.5. And like I said, Illinois coming off the waxing by Indiana. And I still like USC's defense, John.
Yeah, I think the only issue for me is just that time difference, man. Whether it's a college basketball team coming over or a football team. Plus, Illinois is just, like you said, I think coming off that embarrassment. I think this is actually a pretty decent spot for Illinois to cover this number. Not that I think they're a great team or anything, but I just think it's a pretty good spot directionally, for them to come out and give their best.
I like the Illinois number right there for them. I bet Illinois last week, stupidly. So I'm not touching it just because of that. I'm boycotting for 1 week here. I'm not totally sold on USC and going there on the road, time difference, just seems like an odd number for me. So I'll stay away, but I think if I would lean Illinois plus 6.5.
Yeah, the number at basically a touchdown, I don't think I like a side in this one. Again, I like USC's defense, and this total was shot up to 60.5. And USC's defense has only given up 90 rushing yards per game, 90, 93, something like that. It's top 25 in the country. Illinois does not run the ball exceedingly well. They're middle of the pack. And Illinois' defense has been terrible getting off the field on third downs. I want to say they're 90th in the country giving up a 41% conversion rate on third down. So I think I like the under on this one. And then, again, I'm not leaning aside given a touchdown type number, but I'll take the under on USC Illinois.